So essentially just kind of my background in a nutshell. I grew up in Southside Chicago and played basketball in college, which is probably shocking to you.
Where'd you go to school?
I went to Moraine Valley, Hills Heights for 2 years. So I graduated high school and I was like, hey, I'm a garbage man when you're on nurse, figure it out. I looked at the checkbook and said, I'm going to community college.
Yeah.
So I went to community college 2 years and then followed the balancing basketball at Lakeland College in Sheboygan. And thought I would live in Milwaukee for a year and move somewhere sexy. And I found out Milwaukee's really sexy. So that was back in 2001. And after that, I joined, I remember my mom on 9/11. I just moved to my apartment in Milwaukee. And my mom was upset about 9/11. I said, listen, she's like, all three of my boys going off to war. I said, listen, Danny's in high school. They don't pull kids out of high school. And Russell's in college. It's where you go to hide from the war. And I'm like, I'm an accountant. For good reason, they don't send accountants out to fight wars. Long story short, my younger brothers joined up for the military. That next summer, my other brother said, when I graduate college, I'm going to join. So I beat him to the punch, and so all three of us joined up. So after being in the CPA world at KPMG for 4 years, I left KPMG for a little while and joined the military. Went to basic training. I went to Officer Candidate School, and then went to military intelligence school. Got back to work for a little while, and then went to Iraq in 2008. And so in Iraq, I served on the General Petraeus, and it was a $1 million experience. I wouldn't pay a dime to have again. But essentially what we did is, in addition to my military intelligence officer duties, what we did was build businesses up in Iraq. So essentially the mission was to get them back to a state where they felt like they weren't a war environment, but they felt like they were more of a community. And as you know, business is a big part of our community. So we did things like give micro grants to women to start beauty salons. We introduced investors like the Pritzker family, put them over there, sent them over there, put bulletproof vests on them, and said, hey, there's opportunities for hotels here. Gentlemen from big fertilizer companies, and sent them over there and show them that they had some of the key ingredients for fertilizer, and they developed the resources there and formed relationships. So came back, started talking about that story. In addition to, I wear this every year from Memorial Day to June 24. And the reason I wear it every year at that time is that I had a gentleman in my unit who just didn't come home. He was killed in action. He was trying to build a hospital in a tough part of the neighborhood there. And a 13-year-old boy put a backpack in with a bomb, gave it to him by Al-Qaeda. And that day, 2 U.S. soldiers died and 2 State Department folks passed away. So you come back and you talk about that story, and essentially what I just spoke about, not being interested in politics at all, was that being a veteran and being a history buff, like I know the personal sacrifice of people that I know, to a much, much lesser extent, at least the birth of my own first child when I was in Iraq. But over time, it's been 1 million men and women that have died for our country. The fight where we're at today. Now, wearing a different hat as a CPA and as an MBA from Marquette is I'm very concerned that after we sacrificed all that, here we're putting in jeopardy by being financially reckless. And it just doesn't make sense. Like, you're going to give all this to what we have today, and then you're going to put us in a position where our financial recklessness is going to put this great nation in danger. So as I talked about that, some people said, you should think about running for office. The seat opened up, and I ran for office. So I remember telling my employer that it's truly a part-time job, and it's a kind of a sleepy position. It's not like Washington, D.C. with a lot of drama and politics and stuff like that. And I walked right into Act 10. And so at times I felt like I was safer in Baghdad than Madison.
Yeah, right.
No, is it like House of Cards?
No. It's not that bad. But all in all, I mean, what Act 10 was about, I think Act 10 was the biggest thing that session. It's really set us up for success since then as far as moving our tax burden in a trajectory that's manageable. But there's still a tremendous amount of work to do. As kind of being the lead on the tax reform piece, the piece that got rid of a lot of unnecessary tax credits and went from 5 brackets to 4 brackets. I say it's not because we're in a good position now tax-wise. It's like the 500-pound guy who just got off the couch after the last 5 years. Like he got off the couch and he's on his way to the treadmill. That's where we're at right now. Like we got off the couch, we're on the way to the treadmill, and we're still a high tax state. We're still a high property tax state. We're still a high income tax state. But our trajectory is amazing. And in particular, if you look at like manufacturing and agriculture sector, Did you know manufacturing will no longer be taxed in Wisconsin in 2016? I mean, and you're in the business world, so that's huge. So essentially, if you look at the manufacturing activities credit with Glenn Grothman and I did together in the not this past budget before that, 100% of nearly 100% of manufacturing activity and agriculture activity in Wisconsin is going to be tax free. So what it is, it's a 7.5% credit for production in Wisconsin. So that's a big deal. It's not a big deal to like Joy Global, right, or GE because they have an international presence, and so the percentage of what they make here is small, so it's not a big deal for them. But for that mid-tier manufacturing company that sells to Joy Global, like they are tax-free because our top bracket is 7.65, right, on the non-C Corp side. And so when you look at it effectively, they will be $0 taxes. So, I like to say that if you compare Wisconsin to Texas, Wisconsin is going to be a better place for manufacturing than Texas. Why? Because we don't have a personal property tax on our equipment. We're not going to tax manufacturing activity. And we have a better workforce. Our workforce is better trained. We have a better tech college system. We have that Midwestern work ethic that Texas just doesn't have. So I think what you're going to see is that's going to pick up. And from a policy perspective, I mean, if you want more tax revenue to deal with Medicaid and deal with an education system and to have the growth for more tax cuts, there's not industries that are more labor intensive that are manufacturing and ag. So that's going to create activity. Activity creates income taxes, right? And when we have that income taxes, we can use that for lowering our tax burden even further, which we need to do. The other thing we took the lead on this last session is, like I said earlier, I'm a CPA. So earlier last year, we were looking at the books of the state of Wisconsin, myself and some of my CPA colleagues, and we were like, is this right? We didn't say anything. We just simply asked some questions. We said, is this right what we're seeing? It looks like UW is printing money. Like, what is going on here? Like, why? So we were trying to follow GAAP accounting and see what's going on. And when we looked at the detail, we asked some questions. The questions led us to the Fiscal Bureau, which is the state's congressional budget office, if you will, nonpartisan office. And they started asking questions, and they came back to us with a memo saying, well, the University of Wisconsin system has $1 billion that they were not disclosing to the public. So that led to a tuition freeze. So what's cool about that, if you look nationally, one of the big issues that people are dealing with is this high student debt, right? I mean, it's driving bankruptcies because these kids are coming out, they don't have the jobs right now because of our national economy, and they have this high student debt. It's really put them in a tight position. And by the way, student debt is not dischargeable in bankruptcy. So these people are really in a tight spot. And here in Wisconsin, it's a small step, but it's a step that no other state's taking. And that is, we are freezing tuition. We froze tuition.
Thank you.
Yes.
For UW students.
Yeah. So I think that's making a big difference. I know people personally that have two kids in the UW system, and they said, listen, we're in a really tight spot financially, but between freezing tuition, property tax cuts, income tax cuts, we kind of feel like, there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and at least we feel like there's people in Madison that are with us on this journey, that they're not trying to stick us for an extra buck here, an extra buck here, an extra buck there, because we know that's how they raise taxes, right? So we're going to stay on that. So I don't want to talk too long. I could talk forever, but a lot of the changes we made was because we listened to people in the community and we got their feedback. So always, willing to hear more from folks as far as what we think the next step should be. I will say, for like practices like yours, the veterinarian practices like the accounting practice, in the sense that you say, okay, manufacturing is tax-free, what does that do for me? Or like the electrical distribution business, right? It's not our industries are not feeder industries. It's not like Wisconsin's the best veterinarian state or we're the best accounting state or like that's really a state that's going to lead in the distribution business. A lot of that, in a lot of our industries, the retail industry, the restaurant industry, the hotel industry, a lot of that feeds off the strength of driver industries, right? And what are the driver industries? Driver industries are things like manufacturing and ag. Like that's who we are in Wisconsin. Hopefully someday we can add mining to that. And when we have those industries that are churning and moving forward, kind of like the Silicon Valley of the Midwest as far as manufacturing, like then all of what we do, there's going to be more people in Wisconsin and more people with pets. They're going to want to spend more money on their pets. And they're going to have more pets because that's the way it works, and people are making more money. And when they make less money, don't have the opportunity, they say, hey, should we get a pet? They say, no, it's just too much money. And so that's a strategy. I mean, I wish we could get everyone there to zero income taxes tomorrow. We can't do that right now because we're a high spending state. And essentially, all the tax cuts we've done so far have been grabbing the growth. We really didn't cut spending to cut taxes. We just grabbed our growth and said this growth should go towards growing the private sector. It shouldn't go towards growing the government sector. So we'll continue that strategy. So,
Any questions, guys?
Well, I appreciate all your hard work, because I know it's not easy to go through all those numbers, and it's nice having the majority finally in Madison to get these great ideas up and going.
Yeah.
And it's showing, it's showing to all of my friends and our friends that are in the business world. So.
And that's like what I think is a really cool story about 2011, right? Is that the 2011 class came in, and it was a citizen legislature class. And so if you look at the legislature, I was just telling Dr. Sharma, I actually serve with a veterinarian. I actually serve with an ER doctor. I serve with moms and grandmas and grandpas. I serve with school teachers, both public school teachers and Christian school teachers. Accountants, there's a lot of accountants. We have more accountants now in the state legislature.
A few lawyers probably.
And attorneys. More accountants and attorneys. And look what it caused.
Yeah.
It's caused getting rid of some laws that we don't need. It's more free market, tuition freezes, tax cuts. And so essentially bringing this like citizen legislature body has really brought perspective, and perspective has brought policies that are more friendly to families and businesses in Wisconsin. So it's been a remarkable story.
What else do you think could be improved about Wisconsin's regulatory environment?
Yeah, the regulatory environment, I think a lot of that's in the specifics. I think that what's amazing to me, and you just kind of learn it in the system, like there's the elected government, right? And then there's like this stable bureaucratic government that's like not even at the lead of the people that are elected. And it takes some time to like get your appointees in there and then like steer that ship in the right direction. Because for good reason we don't have the spoils system, right? Like we don't get rid of everyone's state government and put a new government in.
The patronage.
Right. I mean, there's good reason not to do that. Right. But at the same time, there's a lot of people within that bureaucracy that are entrenched and don't understand what it's like for a business. So, it's not like Governor Walker says, hey, let's target this business and really give it to them. But there's still individuals within state government that I feel like sometimes don't get the benefit to the community. And then a lot of that is when I hear about regulations, I don't hear a lot about regulations anymore from the state government. I know that there's sometimes issues, and I understand that. We're working and keep on moving that ship in the right direction. A lot of what I hear about is like the city of Milwaukee. I was someplace yesterday. There was a not-for-profit. They're taking guys who were formerly in jail, and what they do is they employ these guys making pallets, selling books that people donate, taking apart electronics and separating out the copper and the useful stuff. And they literally took a building that was full of water in the basement. There was fires where homeless people were living, drug house. And they said it was really, really, really difficult to work in the city trying to get that place up and running.
It seems like a win-win situation.
You would think that the city would just be like, what do we do to accommodate you? And almost would come to the table with almost like an emergency task force, being like, we're going to help you get this thing going. We're going to put tables like this in this place and get the permits done right now, as opposed to like City Hall. No, you need to go to that building over there. You have to do this. All those are the right kind of pipes. Like they should there's places at 30th and North. 30th and North, and someone wants to invest in there and hire ex-convicts, and they're changing lives. I told you how they changed the building, but they're changing lives. These guys are being dads. These are guys who are ex-convicts who realize, you know what, this is important. I have a job, and my most important job is being a father. And they get that because they're having Bible studies together, and they're getting that. What I really want to focus on next session, too, is we've done the 50-year war on poverty. It hasn't worked. And it's the biggest place that has been dropped off in the war on poverty is Milwaukee, west of the river and east of 40th Street, right? We know the areas. And so I want to go in there with some real conservative solutions. Conservative solutions in those areas, I think, would be if you have a company that's from out of state and doesn't compete with state companies that are in the state already, then why not say it's 0% corporate tax for them? Why not say it's a right to work zone? So if there's an auto company and we're talking to them and they're saying, it's between Oklahoma and Wisconsin, why don't we say, we have a spot, it's going to be a right-to-work zone, and it's going to be 0% corporate tax. We don't make a single car in Wisconsin anymore. We used to make hundreds of thousands of cars in the state. We've made millions of cars in the state over time. How many cars do we make today? 0. And it's because our policies are wrong. It's not because of America is not moving forward with making automobiles. We're moving forward. Like, we're doing good. We're exporting automobiles. Why is Wisconsin not in that game? Because our policies are still wrong. And so next session, I think after we pay like a smart policies and smart politics going forward to November, I think we need to like take gigantic steps, because we can't just tiptoe our way to the right, because the economy moves faster than that. We need to make like really strong moves to move to a more friendly regulatory environment. The mining's mostly going to be held up by the federal government with the Army Corps of Engineers and the EPA, but as much as we can, like move that ball as fast as possible, because at a certain point, and this is hard in politics because we think we can sometimes message our way to a better economy. You can't message your way to a calculator that says it's still, the taxes in Wisconsin are still higher than taxes in Illinois. That's a reality we have to deal with. And like, we can't talk our way out of that reality. What we need to do is cut taxes to our way out of that reality. Because the fact is, right now, Illinois millionaires pay 5% in income taxes, and middle-class Wisconsin families pay about in the 6%. And Wisconsin people who own businesses that are probably in the upper bracket are paying 7.65%, which is almost 50% higher than Illinois' 5%. There's other factors in there you can consider. But that's a reality we need to deal with. And, I think that we're part of a larger macro economy. So by no means do I want to root for Illinois to raise their taxes, because that's going to hurt Wisconsin. There may be some like ancillary, they moved over the border because Illinois raised their taxes. The way we get there is by lowering our taxes, because we need Chicago to grow as well, because we're one giant economy. But the reality of what's going to happen is that with Illinois' pension problems, the trajectory of their taxes is like this, and they're going to go this way, and Wisconsin's is like this, we're going down. Why? Because of Act 10, we have the flexibility now to say, hey, you're not holding your weight, and you're making $120,000 a year, we're going to let you go. Or like negotiate that kind of stuff down to save cost. Also because we have a 100% funded pension plan. Illinois, they have many different pension plans, but some of them are as low as 30% funded. So I like our trajectory, but we need to make that trajectory a lot more convincing, because there's still a lot more work to do.
It's unfortunate that the other side is saying just the opposite. Whatever you're doing, and not you personally, but what we're doing, Walker and State are doing wrong. They
don't offer solutions.
I went to her rally here in Whitefish Bay Sunday. It was just terrible. Everything was wrong. All you're doing is bringing up debt by lowering taxes. We got to get the minimum wage up to $10, $15 an hour. I mean, it just things like this. It's totally unrealistic what she is proposing, and we've got to get your message and rest it out in the next 5 months.
Well, that's what I see with the Democrats in general, and I don't see what they are proposing. I know what they're against. They're against everything we've done, including tuition freezes, right? They all voted against tuition freezes. They all voted against the private test. Yeah, they all voted against the budget. It was in the budget.
And we've got, there's 40, I go with Romney, we've got 47% will vote for the other side no matter what, whoever's running it. Could be the
I think with this
crook could be running, they would vote for him. But we've got to get those independents on our side.
Well, here's a story for the independents, okay? Because I think this is a very telling story, and it's an important story. First of all, let's separate. There's two different types of choice programs. There's the voucher program, the choice schools, and there's charter schools. Okay, we're going to talk about charter schools here. So I'm a fan of choice schools, but let's talk about charter schools. Charter schools began by Democrats. It was a Democratic idea from a legislator in Minnesota. President Obama is a proponent of charter schools. If you look at New York City, Mayor de Blasio was elected mayor of New York City. And one of the things he said he was going to do was going to slap down the charter schools. And you know what he did when he was elected? he slapped down the charter schools. He made it so they couldn't get any more buildings. He went in a direction which was an anti-charter school platform, right? Here's what happened. The Democrats in Albany, the Democratic-controlled legislature, and Governor Cuomo said, what are you doing? These charter schools are serving kids in our community, and they're getting better results than the public schools. Why won't we support the charter schools? So they slapped down the Democrat de Blasio, and then they did more to help charter schools. Now, here in Wisconsin, we introduced some charter school legislation, common sense charter school stuff. Charter schools are public schools. And how many Democrats would support charter school reforms? How many Democrats in Wisconsin are Governor Cuomo Democrats? Not one. Not one Democrat will support an alternative to a public school, even if it was originally a Democratic idea, even if it was supported by President Obama. Because they are all de Blasio Democrats. They're de Blasio Democrats in Wisconsin. These are Democrats that are left of the party, and not one of them want to have the courage to step up and support charter schools, which are public schools, which are doing literally God's work in our inner cities, taking a inner city environment where minorities, 40% of them oftentimes don't graduate, and they're not supporting it. So, for example, Madison. In Madison, the black community rose up and said the black graduation rate in Madison is about 50%. Minority graduation rate is about 50%. And so they went to the local public school, which is the only entity that can authorize a charter school in Madison. The only entity in Madison is the local public school. Here in Milwaukee, MATC could do it, UWM could do it, the public school could do it, and also the city of Milwaukee could do it. But in Madison, it's only the school board. So what do the school boards say to the black community when they say we want to start a charter school to serve this public policy problem in our backyard? The answer was, no, you're not competing with us. So, I mean, those are the stories I think we need to tell, especially when you have a headquarters this close to the inner city, is why are you dropping off? I mean, I think education is a civil rights issue of the 21st century. There's a huge disparity in incarceration between blacks and whites. There's a huge disparity between economic success between black and whites. And what does it all come down to? It comes down to education. It's the civil rights area of the 21st century. And Republicans, especially in Wisconsin, own the message of a solution to the status quo. And what is Mary Burke's idea to shake up the status quo? What's her idea? She has no idea. She doesn't support choice. She doesn't support charter schools. I think maybe she eked out we need more money for schools. But there's a direct relationship with the more money that a school district is getting in state money for schools. Like, the results are lopsided. It's the opposite relationship. So to say that money is the solution to the problem just really shows her ignorance on the public policy issue, and I don't know what their solution to those issues are.
You kind of lean towards this, but I was also wondering, obviously the issues coming up with coal and the EPA and the taxes that are arriving, what do you think are a good way for the legislature to address that?
Well, I mean, unfortunately, at the federal level, they really tire against the legislature. We really don't have a lot of power to address that. It's really the breakdown, once again, in the republic system, where more and more times the federal government is coming into the state saying, here's what you're going to do. And, I don't think it's any coincidence that the states that are really going to economically be hurt in this are states that are Republican states, and Wisconsin being a purple state. I mean, really, what I'm seeing out of the Obama administration, out of Democrats, is an assault on the middle class. An absolute assault on the middle class. These are middle-class jobs. And what it's going to do is, what Wisconsin's going to disproportionately impact? It's going to disproportionately impact people that can't afford higher utility rates. What is the area of Wisconsin that could least afford higher utility rates? It's the inner city that has the least amount of money to pay for higher utility rates. It's the same reason in Wisconsin we didn't say that Milwaukee can't have a streetcar. If they want to build a streetcar for the wealthiest neighborhood in Milwaukee for a 1.8-mile loop, they can have a streetcar. There's a false perception out there that Republicans in Madison said they couldn't have a streetcar. You know what we said? We said you can't pay for the streetcar by raising utility rates and having other people pay for your pet project, for the rich people in Milwaukee. And who are we protecting on that? It's the inner city, the people that are, once again, going to have the largest percentage of their income go to higher utility rates that they can't afford. In Brookfield, it annoys me, But I could probably absorb it. I mean, we'll figure out a way to pay a couple more cents or a couple more dollars a month for electric or cable or steam's a big issue in that neighborhood because the steam system's underground. We'll probably figure it out. But essentially, those higher taxes through utility rates disproportionately affect the people that can least afford it, and it's the inner city. And I think those are the stories we need to tell because their policies are so wrong for that community. What are our policies? Lowering property taxes, foreclosure issues. It makes it easier to stay in your house, right? If your property taxes are lower, we're lowering taxes. I can't get an education because it's too expensive. We froze tuition. Why do we freeze tuition? Because you sent a citizen legislature to Madison. We actually used our civilian skills to find the money. And, licensing reform. We're making it easier to practice professional, making it easier to become a cosmetologist, making more opportunities through free market reforms in the inner city. So I think we have a winning message. It's just a matter of places like this, and you guys telling this message. You need people that are educated in these issues, and then going in the neighborhood to be like, listen, here's the facts. Here's the facts. I mean, I would be interested in polling even historically as a party. I mean, I'm focused on where we're at now, and I'm proud of where we're at now. But I don't think we have any reason to apologize as a party. What percentage of people in Milwaukee know that we're the party that ended slavery? What percentage of people know that we're the party that had passed in Congress the civil rights voting and the civil rights in the 60s? It was Republican Congress. It was the Southern Democrats that opposed us on that. So I think those are the stories we need to keep telling. And I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but essentially, there's a lot of stuff we need to keep talking about too. Because I talk about Wisconsin being tax-free for manufacturing, and smart, savvy business people like you just haven't heard that yet. And that's something you need to tell your friend that lives in California who has a manufacturing business. Tell them, hey, here's what the deal is in Wisconsin. Come on over and bring your pets.
Well, maybe we can go around the table and ask some questions. Doctor, do you have any questions or concerns you'd like to raise?
Taxes should be reduced a lot. Like in cities, that is the main thing. We're paying a lot. That
Is
would
it
be helpful?
And so essentially the way we've been lowering property taxes, if you're interested, is so we've been holding the cities and the school districts harmless. So we send the money to the school district and say, here is $10 million. You need to now lower your property taxes by $10 million. So I think we're doing it in a responsible way, and we got to keep doing it. Keep lowering the taxes. So one of the things I think we should get rid of is there's a state property tax. It's about 1% of your property tax bill. But I don't see why the state should have a property tax like that. We could start, let's fix the state property tax. Yeah. And that goes towards forestry. I think there's a way, what you do is, I think that's important. You just take the 1% and you just do it out of the general budget. And you get rid of the state property tax. Also, Wisconsin is one of, 7 states that has an alternative minimum tax. So essentially what I always say is politicians that create a tax code they didn't understand, so they have a second tax code to catch you if you navigate through it. And it's really a small dollar amount right now, but it's going to grow in the future. So we got to get rid of Wisconsin's alternative minimum tax. More and more middle class are going to fall into that. And essentially, if we're going to talk about getting rid of our income tax someday, let's start with getting rid of our let's start about getting rid of our second income tax, which is the AMT.
Well, our business is an S corporation, which means all the profits from the business flow to the shareholders, and then the shareholders have to pay all the taxes on those profits, even though we don't get all those profits because the company retains most of them for growth.
Right.
But we have to pay the taxes on all
And the
those
return
profits.
is telling you in 27 states to file a return. We obviously can't do that. The accountant has
And the state taxes are high, but it's the federal taxes that are just crushing us because they just raised the top rate, and then on top of that, they threw in this Obamacare surtax. So I think our federal tax rate is 43%. And, they keep talking about how millionaires and billionaires aren't paying their fair share. Well, believe me, we're paying...
paid more than the Obama.
We pay a higher percent than the Obamas paid.
Yeah.
And it's just crushing us.
Yeah, I believe it. That's what kind of, from a state policy perspective, it's really difficult because the majority of your decisions that you make in your business, when they are affected by tax, they're driven by your federal tax, right?
And so as an S Corp, all those additional taxes are money that would have been retained by the company for growing the company and adding new jobs, not to give us
Right.
more money. We're going to get the
Right.
same amount of money no matter what, because it's just a small dividend. But the profits that the company retains are used to hire new people. And the more the government takes, the less money there is for hiring new people and growing the business. And
I'll add to that too. So people, when we cut taxes here in Wisconsin, like I could tell you this gentleman from my church, because I know him personally and I talk to him and I see what they're doing. And when they cut the taxes, they do one of two things. They either invest in their companies, which is either more people or more equipment, and equipment's made by someone too, right?
Yeah.
Or they give the money away to places like the Milwaukee Rescue Mission and give it to not-for-profits, and that place I mentioned in 30th and North, like that's supported by guys like that who donate money, right?
Yeah.
And they do it exponentially better and make more of a personal impact than any bureaucracy.
that's
Yeah,
exactly right.
we created a healthcare nonprofit organization for the tri-state, Wisconsin, Illinois,
Yeah.
and Iowa. Our family did,
Yeah.
to give back when you
Right.
can, but.
But the more the government
Yeah.
takes away, the less the business can do.
Right, right.
And the business can do it so much more efficiently than the government can.
Absolutely.
So those increased taxes just take away from economic growth that would have happened otherwise.
Absolutely.
And that's our biggest issue. I mean, it's taxes, taxes, taxes.
I agree.
We'd like to see the economy do better to grow the business, but it's all being held back by the increase in taxes.
I agree.
So relevant to this conversation, is there any major legislation that you see kind of on the horizon for the next session?
I think that obviously tax cuts are the biggest issue, and it's not a real complicated issue, right? Like Act 10 was at a point, a little complicated, and the last tax reforms got a little complicated as far as all the stuff going on. But you guys remember the video that was going out there a couple years ago? It was the New York City guy running for office, and it was the rent is too damn high.
Yeah.
Remember that guy?
Oh, yeah.
The rent is just too damn high. Well, in Wisconsin, like I feel like that guy with our taxes are just too damn high, and so
Gotta wear gloves.
yeah, I don't mean to be like oversimplify things, but our taxes are just too high. And it's our property taxes, our income taxes. I'm leery with, I don't think a sales tax shift is the answer either, because the problem with sales tax is that it's always a sales tax holiday online, right? So about a little over 50% of your online sales aren't taxed. Now that Amazon created a presence and said those are now taxed, and we use
Same
that
with
additional
Nordstrom's,
revenue.
that was my
Yeah,
favorite
so
bonus.
That hits you hard, right?
so now that we took that and we lowered property tax with that. But that just kind of talks about like smart policies, right? So let's very quickly talk about Minnesota. 2 years ago, Minnesota passed a new warehouse tax, and their argument was, well, our distributors are held hostage. Like they have to distribute here, they have to have warehouses, they're not going to go anywhere. So let's hit them with a warehouse tax. Well, Wisconsin was on it, and we started recruiting those companies. Said, hey, you should invest in Wisconsin. So places like Amazon, like, are they going to do their distribution center in Minnesota? Or are they going to do their distribution center in Wisconsin? Do it here, right? Well, long story short is, I think they felt the impact of that so greatly, so fast, and there was so much feedback on that, like how it was actually creating negative growth, that they actually repealed that warehouse tax before it even went into effect in this last. And then they did a big trumpet of a tax cut, which was just repealing the tax cut they just did in part. So, so we have Amazon here, and what's funny about that is that having Amazon here was actually a revenue pickup, because once you have a physical presence in a state, then it triggers that you have to collect online sales taxes. Mm-hmm. So once Amazon went here, it triggered about 36%, I believe, of online sales were through Amazon. So it was a big up in sales tax, and then we took that growth right away and we cut property taxes with it. So I mean, really the only way I think cut taxes, I'm not a big fan of tax shifts, because once you have the high water mark, maybe we raise tax by 100 basis points, but then someday oh, we're just raising it back where it was. So I'm not a fan of that. I think the only way to do it is clean up the tax code by getting rid of like tax credits and special favors and make it simpler and fair. 2 is economic growth. When you have economic growth, grab that growth and lower taxes with it. And 3 is like those places to cut spending, cut spending.
Sounds easy.
It is.
It sounds so easy.
I know, but we got to do it.
Well, I'm glad you guys lowered the threshold for Medicaid back down to the poverty level.
Right.
That was huge.
Which actually increased the number of people on Medicaid. And like that's another thing, like talking about middle class, like we're the party that expanded healthcare coverage to 100% of poverty, 100% of the population under poverty. Everyone in Wisconsin, for the first time ever, has access to healthcare in poverty. No Democrat has ever done that in Wisconsin.
No, they had waiting lists.
They had waiting lists, right? And that's they did. We got rid of the waiting list and we expanded healthcare coverage to 100% of people have poverty below. And with grocery store. And with country.
By the way.
There's a lot of other states I can't say.
Right.
Excuse me, I have to go.
No problem. It's
Okay.
nice to meet
Thank
you,
you.
Rick
Good to
Sharma.
see you.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Right, thank you. My
Thanks for
pleasure.
coming, Doctor.
Thank you.
Any other questions before we wrap up here? Well, thank you again for coming out and talking to us for a few minutes here. I know I learned a lot personally. So.
Take it outdoors with you guys.
And